Is that your kid or just another charity case? The voice sliced through the humid Texas air like a blade, sharp and deliberately loud enough to turn heads. Marcus Rivera didn't react. He stayed crouched beside the broken air conditioning unit behind the Riverside Community Center, wrench in hand, sweat dripping down his weathered face. But he heard every word. So did his daughter Sophia. She was 8, tiny for her age, still wearing her faded school uniform with holes in the knees. She pressed her face against the chain-link fence surrounding the basketball court, watching the elite travel team practice with the hunger of someone who dreamed of something beyond her reach. "Move along, kid," Coach Bradley Hamilton called out, not even glancing her way as he adjusted his pristine Dallas Mavericks polo. "This is a private session, unless you're here to sweep the court afterward." Snickers rippled through the group of 12-year-olds in matching Nike gear. The kind of laughter that cuts deep. Not cruel but casual. The kind that tells a child they're invisible. Marcus tightened his grip on the wrench. The AC unit hissed once, then fell silent. He wiped his hands on his maintenance uniform, stood slowly, and walked over to where Sophia stood frozen. "She wasn't blocking anything," Marcus said quietly, placing a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. Coach Hamilton finally turned, flashing that practice smile he used on wealthy parents. "Well, well. The janitor speaks." He gestured toward the bleachers. "Spectator seating is over there, Mr. Rivera. We try to maintain professional boundaries here." Hamilton's eyes swept over Marcus's oil-stained uniform, with obvious disdain. "You know, in competitive basketball we teach that excellence starts with presentation. Maybe invest in some proper clothes before bringing your daughter around here." More laughter. Sharper this time. One kid actually pointed. A girl covered her mouth, embarrassed for both of them. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply reached down, took Sophia's backpack, and helped her adjust the straps. "Come on, Nisha. Let's go." She nodded silently, but her eyes never left the court, never stopped watching those lucky kids dribble and shoot with confidence she'd never been allowed to feel. They turned to leave, but before they reached the gate, another voice rang out, calm, measured, and carrying the kind of authority that made everyone freeze. "Coach Hamilton." The voice belonged to Elena Santos, the community center's new director. She stood at the top of the metal stairs leading to the office, her posture as straight as her words. She wore a crisp white blouse and navy blazer, and her expression was unreadable. "You'll apologize, now." Every head snapped upward. Hamilton's cocky smile faltered for just a second. "Miss Santos, I was just apologizing," she interrupted, descending the stairs with measured steps. "Now would be appropriate." Marcus blinked. He barely knew Elena Santos. He'd fixed her office air conditioning once, maybe twice. She'd always been polite but distant. Today, she was something else entirely. Hamilton cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Of course. My apologies, Mr. Rivera. Didn't mean any disrespect." Marcus looked at Elena, then back at Hamilton. "I've heard worse," he said quietly. "Doesn't bother me." Elena stopped at the bottom of the stairs. "I didn't ask him to apologize for your sake," she said firmly. She turned toward the kids. "I asked him to apologize for theirs." The court fell silent. Then, softly, Elena looked at Sophia. "Do you want to learn to play?" Sophia's eyes went wide. She looked at her father, searching his face for permission, for hope, for anything that said this moment was real. Marcus didn't answer immediately. He watched Hamilton, who was now staring at the ground, jaw clenched tight. "I'm just here to fix the AC," Marcus said finally. Elena's voice didn't waver. "And I'm here to fix something else." She turned to the team. "Everyone take a water break. 15 minutes. Stretch. Hydrate." Then to Hamilton. "Let's discuss programming in my office." After Hamilton reluctantly walked away, Elena looked at Marcus again. This time her voice carried just a hint of warmth. "She can observe practice for now, if you're okay with it." Marcus nodded once. Elena gave the smallest of smiles and walked toward the building. The moment passed, but the silence remained heavy. Sophia whispered, "Dad, she's incredible." Marcus smiled despite himself. "She's something, all right." Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "Don't tell her that uniform crack was actually kind of funny." Sophia giggled. "I won't." "But you almost laughed." "Almost," Sophia agreed, leaning into her father's side. They sat down on the bleachers. Practice resumed, but Hamilton's voice had lost its edge, and Sophia, she didn't press against the fence anymore. She sat up straight, watching everything with the intensity of someone who just found the door cracked open. 2 days later, Marcus stood with Sophia outside the community center's main entrance. The September heat was relentless. the kind that made the afternoon feel like it was pressing down on your shoulders. He was adjusting the straps of Sophia's borrowed basketball shoes, 2 sizes too big, laces doubled up. She stared at the glass doors with nervous energy radiating off her like heat waves. "You sure about this, Misha?" Marcus asked, his voice gentle but hesitant. "You don't have to prove anything to anybody." Sophia looked up at him, chin trembling but determined. "I want to try, Dad." Marcus nodded slowly. "Okay then. Let's do this." Inside, the community center buzzed with activity. Elena stood near the front desk, clipboard in hand, speaking with Coach Williams, an older black man with graying temples and the kind of stillness that spoke of decades on the court. He moved deliberately, but when he did move, the room seemed to notice. Hamilton stood at the far end of the court, watching a group of kids warm up. His smile was mechanical, hollow, the kind you put on when you know you're being watched. "Sophia, right on time." A voice called out. It belonged to Jessica, a high school senior who volunteered with the youth program. She had kind eyes and moved with the confident grace of someone who'd played varsity ball. "Ready to show these kids what you've got?" Sophia grinned, nervous but genuine. Marcus watched her walk onto the court, following Jessica like a shadow, tiny among the rows of older kids. "She moves like you," Elena said, appearing beside him so quietly he almost jumped. Marcus turned, surprised. Elena stood in her usual professional attire, arms crossed, watching Sophia with focused attention. "Like me? That quiet confidence," Elena replied, "like she belongs even when nobody invited her." Marcus glanced back at his daughter, who was now attempting her first dribbling drill. "She didn't get that from me. She just doesn't know when to be scared yet." Elena tilted her head slightly. "Or maybe she knows exactly when to be scared and chooses to keep going anyway." There was a pause. Not awkward, but significant, like standing at the edge of something neither of them had expected. "Thank you," Marcus said finally, "for seeing her, for not turning her away." Elena was quiet for a moment, then shook her head. "I didn't do it for charity, Marcus." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "There's something broken in this program. I just hadn't realized how badly until she looked through that fence." Marcus studied her face, noting the way her voice dropped when she spoke about the center, like it wasn't just a job but a mission someone had abandoned. "You built this place, didn't you?" She nodded. "My late husband did. I funded it." Her voice was even, but there was real pain underneath. "He wanted a place where kids learned, not just how to play but how to believe in themselves. Where talent wasn't about money or zip codes." "And now?" Marcus asked. Elena exhaled slowly. "Now it's become exactly what he fought against. Elite teams, expensive gear, politics. Kids like Sophia get pushed to the margins." Marcus looked over at Hamilton, who was barking orders at another group like a drill sergeant. "He runs it like a boot camp for rich kids." Elena's eyes flashed. He was a college star, charismatic, got results. The board loved him. Then almost to herself, "But I stopped listening to my instincts the day I signed those contracts." Marcus crossed his arms. "Your instincts might need a louder voice." That made Elena laugh. Quietly, but genuinely. It was the first time Marcus had seen her drop the professional mask. Just a woman, tired, maybe trying to find her way back to something real. "You didn't even blink when he humiliated you," she said. "Why?" Marcus looked down, his voice steady, but soft. "Because if I'd reacted, she would have remembered my anger longer than his insult." Elena's expression softened. "That's rare." "It shouldn't be," he said. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Sophia stumble through a layup drill, then recover with determined focus. She glanced once at Marcus, who gave her a subtle thumbs up. Her shoulders straightened immediately. "She's going to be special," Elena said. Marcus smiled faintly. "She already is. She just doesn't know it yet." Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it but didn't move to answer. "Hamilton wants to schedule a private scrimmage next week," she said. "Claims it'll demonstrate the program's elite standards." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like he wants revenge." Elena didn't respond immediately. She just watched Sophia, her voice distant. "Let him talk for now." Marcus studied her carefully. "You have a plan." She looked at him directly for the first time that day. "Not yet, but I have something better." "What's that?" Elena gave him a small knowing smile. "I have questions I'm finally ready to ask." Marcus chuckled. "Those tend to be more dangerous than answers." "Exactly," she said, turning to head back to her office. Then, pausing at the door, she added over her shoulder, "By the way, I don't think your uniform needs an upgrade." Marcus grinned. "I'll let Coach Hamilton know." She disappeared into the hallway, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. He looked back at Sophia, who was now attempting free throws with Jessica's patient guidance. Each miss was followed by immediate retrieval, immediate focus on the next shot, not out of desperation, but out of faith that improvement was possible. And for the first time in years, Marcus felt something stir in his chest, not anger, not regret, but the faint, flickering warmth of something he'd thought was buried forever. Hope. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in the community center's equipment room pulling on an old basketball jersey he'd found in a box marked donations. It was faded blue with white trim, creased from years of storage. A small patch on the chest had once displayed a team logo, but now only the outline remained. "You sure you want to go through with this?" Jessica asked from the doorway, her voice tight with concern. She'd been watching the tension build between Marcus and Hamilton for days. "I'm not here to prove anything," Marcus said, adjusting the jersey. "I'm here to earn my daughter a seat at the table." Jessica looked confused. "What do you mean?"
Marcus met her eyes. "I mean, Sophia deserves to play with kids who respect the game, not kids who think they own it."
Outside, the sound of sneakers on hardwood echoed through the building. Today was Hamilton's elite demonstration, a calculated show of dominance disguised as a training exercise. Elena had agreed to it, but insisted it be done transparently, in front of everyone. No backroom politics, just truth on the court. Marcus stepped out of the equipment room and walked toward the main court. He didn't move like someone trying to prove himself. He moved like someone bringing something back, something that had been waiting. Hamilton stood at center court in his pristine coaching gear, whistle around his neck, that familiar smirk plastered across his face. It was the kind of smile that said, "I've already won, and everyone's about to watch you lose." "Glad you showed up, Rivera," Hamilton said loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. "I was worried you'd be too busy unclogging toilets." A few chuckles rippled through the bleachers. Marcus didn't respond. He simply walked to the center of the court and extended his hand for a respectful handshake. Hamilton returned the gesture, but his grip was unnecessarily firm, his smile sharp-edged. Elena stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "This is a controlled demonstration," she announced. "No intentional contact. No trash talk. Stop when I say stop. Clear." Both men nodded. Elena stepped back. "Begin." For the first few seconds, nobody moved. Marcus's stance was relaxed, almost casual. Hamilton's was textbook perfect, feet dancing slightly, shoulders loose but calculated. Then Hamilton struck first. A quick crossover dribble, followed by a drive to the basket. Clean, fast, showing off the skills that had made him a star. But Marcus wasn't there when he arrived. He'd stepped aside with minimal movement. No flash, just precision. Another attempt. Spin move, behind the back dribble, pull-up jump shot. All smooth, all quick. Marcus didn't try to block it. He just played defense the way someone who'd learned on military bases and street courts plays defense. Patient, efficient, reading the game 3 moves ahead. The crowd leaned forward. Sophia sat in the front row next to Jessica, eyes wide with concentration. "Why isn't he trying to score?" Sophia whispered. Jessica's gaze never left the court. "Because he doesn't need to. Not yet." Hamilton's moves came faster now, more aggressive. His breathing deepened, his jaw clenched, not with focus but with frustration. Every shot he took was contested. Every drive was cut off, not with spectacular blocks or steals, but with simple fundamental defense that made everything harder than it should have been. Marcus moved like someone who'd been in tougher situations than this. His calm wasn't arrogance. It was discipline, mastery without ego. For the first time since the demonstration started, the gym fell completely quiet. No cheering, no commentary, just the sound of sneakers and breathing. Then Hamilton overcommitted on a drive to the left, trying to muscle past Marcus with raw athleticism. But Marcus wasn't there to be muscled past. He'd read the move, stepped into the passing lane, and suddenly Hamilton was stumbling, off balance, grasping at air. The steal was clean, almost gentle. Marcus caught the ball, took 2 dribbles, and calmly sank a 3-pointer from the top of the key. Nothing but net. The silence stretched for 3 full seconds before the crowd erupted. Hamilton caught himself, turned sharply, face flushed. "Got lucky," he muttered, but his voice carried. Marcus retrieved the ball and passed it back to him. "Let's keep playing." What happened next was a masterclass in controlled dominance. Marcus didn't showboat. He didn't humiliate. He simply played basketball the way it was meant to be played, with intelligence, patience, and respect for the game. Every possession was a lesson in fundamentals. Every defensive stop was a reminder that talent without character is just noise. When Elena finally called time, the score was 15-7. Marcus. But the numbers didn't tell the real story. The real story was in the way the kids in the bleachers sat forward, the way their eyes followed Marcus's every movement, the way they'd stopped talking and started learning. Elena stepped to center court. This demonstration is concluded. She looked at Hamilton. Would you like to say anything? Hamilton stood there for a moment, sweat clinging to his forehead. His perfect composure finally cracked. No, he said quietly. Elena nodded. Very well. She turned to Marcus. You didn't come here to prove something, she said. Marcus glanced at Sophia, then back at Elena. No, I came here to show her that you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to be heard. Elena's eyes flickered with something that might have been admiration. She stepped aside, gesturing toward the exit. Marcus helped Hamilton to his feet, the same way he'd help any player who'd fallen. No malice, no triumph, just the basic respect that makes the game beautiful. As Marcus walked toward Sophia, the crowd began to applaud. Not the wild, theatrical cheering of a victory, but the deeper, more meaningful recognition of something authentic. And somewhere in Elena Santos's chest, beneath the careful professionalism and paper-thin emotional barriers, something warm stirred to life. Not victory, but possibility. The phone call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Marcus was in his small kitchen, making coffee and scrambling eggs, when his cell phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made him answer. Mr. Rivera? The voice was shaky. Young. This is Taylor, from Sophia's school. There's been an accident. Time stopped. Marcus's coffee mug hit the floor, shattering against the linoleum. What happened? Sophia was crossing the street after school. A delivery truck ran a red light. She's at Presbyterian Hospital. The drive to the hospital was a blur of traffic lights and racing thoughts. Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, his knuckles went white. When he finally burst through the emergency room doors, he found Elena already there, still in her work clothes, pacing near the nurse's station. How did you? He started. Jessica called me, Elena said, her voice tight with worry. She's in surgery. Broken leg. Possible internal injuries. Marcus sank into a plastic chair, his body suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I should have picked her up. I should have been there. Elena sat beside him, her hand finding his shoulder. Marcus, no, don't do that to yourself. I promised her, he whispered. Promised her she could keep playing, keep growing, keep believing in herself. She still can, Elena said firmly. Whatever happens, she still can. Hours passed. Elena never left. She bought terrible hospital coffee, made phone calls to cancel meetings, and sat in uncomfortable silence while Marcus wrestled with guilt and fear. When the surgeon finally appeared, Marcus stood before the man even finished walking into the waiting room. She's stable, the doctor said. The surgery went well. Compound fracture of the tibia, but we were able to repair it. She'll need extensive physical therapy, and there may be some permanent limitations to her mobility. Marcus felt his knees buckle slightly. Will she be able to play basketball? The doctor hesitated. It's too early to say, but I want to be honest with you, competitive athletics may not be realistic. The words hit like a physical blow. Marcus nodded, trying to process what this meant for Sophia's dreams, for the light he'd seen in her eyes every time she touched a basketball. Can I see her? He asked. She's still unconscious. But yes. Room 3. Marcus walked down the sterile hallway on unsteady legs. Elena followed, her presence both comforting and heartbreaking. They found Sophia looking impossibly small in the hospital bed, her leg in a cast from ankle to thigh, monitors beeping steadily around her. Marcus pulled a chair close to the bed and took her hand. I'm here, Maya. Dad's here. When Sophia finally opened her eyes 3 hours later, the first thing she saw was Marcus's worried face. Dad? Right here, baby girl. Right here. She blinked slowly, taking in the hospital room, the cast, the reality of what had happened. Did I mess up? Marcus let out a shaky laugh. No, sweetheart. You didn't mess up anything. Some idiot in a truck messed up. Sophia was quiet for a moment, then asked the question Marcus had been dreading. Will I still be able to play basketball? He wanted to lie, wanted to promise her everything would be okay. But he'd learned that hope built on lies crumbles faster than hope built on truth. I don't know, he said honestly, but I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. And I know that whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. Sophia smiled faintly. Good, because I wasn't ready to stop learning yet. That night, as Sophia slept, Marcus and Elena sat in the hospital cafeteria, picking at sandwiches neither of them wanted to eat. She's going to be okay, Elena said. Maybe not the same, but okay. Marcus nodded. She's tougher than both of us put together. Elena studied his face. So are you. I don't feel tough, Marcus admitted. I feel like I'm held together with duct tape and prayers. Elena reached across the table and took his hand. That's what strength looks like, Marcus. Not the absence of breaking, but the willingness to keep going after you've been broken. They sat in silence, her hand warm in his, both of them understanding that something fundamental had shifted between them. Not romance, not yet, but recognition. Two people who'd been through loss, who understood that healing wasn't about going back to who you were before. It was about becoming someone new. You know, Elena said softly, when I first met you, I thought you were just another maintenance guy counting days until retirement. Marcus smiled. And you were the Ice Queen administrator who only cared about budgets and policies. I still care about budgets, Elena said, but her eyes were warm. But I care about other things more.
Like what?
She squeezed his hand. Like making sure kids like Sophia know they matter, even when the world tells them they don't. That weekend, word spread through the community about Sophia's accident. The community center held an impromptu gathering, not a formal meeting, just people showing up because they cared. Kids from the basketball program, parents, coaches, volunteers, they filled the main court. Not to play, but to be together. Elena stood at center court. No clipboard, no formal presentation, just a woman talking to her community. We're not here to play games or run drills, she said. We're here to remember what this place is really about. It's about showing up for each other when things get hard. Marcus sat in the bleachers, overwhelmed by the support. Jessica had organized a card-making station for the younger kids. Coach Williams had brought a video camera to record messages for Sophia. Even some of Hamilton's former players had shown up, apparently having learned something from that day on the court. I want to say something, Marcus said, standing up. The room fell quiet. He walked to the center of the court, looking around at all the faces, some familiar, some new, all united by something deeper than basketball. 3 months ago, I was just a guy who fixed air conditioners and changed light bulbs, he began. I thought I was invisible. I thought my daughter was invisible too. His voice caught slightly. But this place, these people, they saw us. They saw Sophia's potential before she even knew she had it. He paused, gathering strength. She's going to be okay. Different, maybe, but okay. And when she's ready, she's going to be back on this court. Maybe not as a player, but as someone who understands that the game is bigger than individual talent. It's about community. It's about lifting each other up. The applause was soft but sustained. Elena stepped forward, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Sophia's accident reminded me of something I'd forgotten, she said. This place isn't about creating champions. It's about creating character. And sometimes the strongest people are the ones who know how to fall down and get back up. Later, as the crowd dispersed and the center grew quiet, Marcus and Elena walked slowly around the empty court. What happens now? Marcus asked. Elena stopped at center court, looking up at the rafters where championship banners hung alongside hand-drawn posters from the youth program. Now we build something better. Not just a basketball program, but a place where kids learn that their worth isn't measured by their performance. Marcus nodded. Sophia would like that. She's going to be part of it, Elena said with certainty. Different role, same heart. They stood in comfortable silence, the weight of the day settling around them. Finally, Elena turned to face him. Marcus, I need to tell you something. He waited. I'm falling in love with you, she said simply. Not because of what you did on the court, but because of who you are when no one's watching. The way you see Sophia, the way you see possibility in broken things. Marcus felt his heart race. Elena, you don't have to say anything, she continued. I just needed you to know. Instead of words, Marcus stepped closer and gently took her face in his hands. I love you too, he said. I didn't think I had room for that anymore, but somehow you found a way in. Their kiss was soft, tender, full of hope and healing. When they broke apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. So what do we do now? She asked. Marcus smiled. We show up tomorrow. And the day after that. And we keep building something worth believing in. 6 months later, Sophia returned to the community center for the first time since the accident. She moved with a slight limp, her left leg still weak, but her eyes held the same fire they'd always had. The court had been transformed. Alongside the regulation basketball hoops, there were adjustable hoops for different heights and abilities. A corner of the gym had been converted into a training area, focused on fundamentals and adaptive techniques. A banner hung on the wall. Every player, every dream, every day. Elena and Marcus stood together watching Sophia slowly dribble a ball, testing her balance, finding her rhythm. They weren't married yet, but they were building something together. A life, a program, a future based on the radical idea that everyone deserves a chance to play. You know what I realized? Sophia said, making her first successful shot since the accident. Basketball isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Marcus grinned. Where'd you learn that? From my dad, Sophia said, passing him the ball. He taught me that the best players aren't the ones who never fall down. They're the ones who get back up and help others do the same. Elena watched this exchange with a full heart. The program had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. Kids with disabilities, kids from foster care, kids who'd been cut from other teams, they all found a place here, not because the standards were lower, but because the definition of success had expanded. As the evening practice session began, Marcus took his position as head coach, a role he'd never sought but had grown into naturally. Elena managed the administrative side, but her real joy came from watching the transformation in the kids' faces when they realized they belonged. All right, everyone, Marcus called out. Let's start with the fundamentals. Not because they're easy, but because they're the foundation of everything else. The group formed a circle at center court, kids of all sizes, all abilities, all backgrounds. Sophia moved carefully but confidently to join them, her slight limp just part of who she was now, not a limitation, but a reminder of her strength. What's the first rule? Marcus asked. Respect the game, the kids chorused. And what's the second rule? Respect each other. And the third? Sophia's voice rose above the others. Respect yourself enough to keep trying. Elena smiled, watching the father and daughter who had changed everything. The community center had become more than a building. It was a home, a place where broken things could be made whole, where second chances were the norm, and where love looked like showing up day after day for people who needed to know they mattered. Marcus caught her eye across the court and winked. She shook her head, half amused, half amazed at how life could surprise you when you stopped trying to control it and started trying to serve it. The practice continued, filled with laughter, effort, and the sound of sneakers on hardwood, but underneath it all was something deeper. The quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're part of something bigger than yourself, something that started with a maintenance man who refused to let his daughter be invisible, and a director who remembered that her job wasn't to manage a program, it was to nurture dreams. As the sun set over the community center, casting long shadows across the court, the sound of bouncing basketballs mixed with the voices of kids who'd found their place in the world. And in that simple, beautiful cacophony, you could hear the sound of hope being reborn, one shot at a time.